You gave them heaven. They used your light to find their way to someone else. You loved them through their storms. They learned to enjoy the shelter, not the sacrifice. They weren't confused. They were calculating how much of your grace they could still take. You weren't hard to love. They just fed on the parts of you that bled silently. You didn't imagine it. They just needed you to doubt yourself to keep control. Your kindness was never weakness, but they needed you to believe it was. They mistook your unconditional love as a contract to never leave, even when they broke you. The way they twisted your empathy into a leash, that wasn't love, that was hunger. You stayed loyal to their potential. They stayed loyal to their lies. They knew the version of you they were destroying. They just didn't care. You saw a soul to save. They saw a soul to drain. What they called love was really your healing, wrapped in their manipulation. Your silence was sacred. They took it as permission to sin again. You weren't broken. You were cracked open for truth to pour through. Every time you forgave them, they learned how far you'd bend before breaking. They didn't misunderstand you. They just preferred you silent and small. You taught them love. They taught you grief. You kept trying to resurrect what only existed in your heart. You begged God to fix what was only built to break you. Their apologies were spells. They never meant them. They meant to keep you. You confused manipulation for fate because they wore your fears like perfume. They only loved the version of you who didn't know better. You weren't too much. You were just too awake for someone still sleeping. They didn't lose you. They buried you in guilt and called it intimacy. You weren't healing with them. You were holding your breath and calling it hope. The love was real, but only on your end. That's what hurt most. You mistook the ache for chemistry. It was your intuition screaming. They didn't love you back. They just feared what you'd become without them. You weren't hard to love. They were just too selfish to hold sacred things. If this touched your soul, don't scroll, like, comment your favorite quote, and subscribe for more. You forgave them for wounds they watched you bleed from, without flinching. You weren't asking for too much. You were just asking them to see your soul. They taught you what betrayal dressed as love looks like. You stayed, hoping they'd change. They stayed knowing you wouldn't. Your love was a cathedral. They only came to light a match.